Welcome to my 240th video on my work with OO gauge. In this video I'll be dealing with some activity with regards to the state of my Hornby Dublo 3-rail tabletop railway, basically clearing the tracks a bit by removing some trains from the layout and adding some storage to provide a handy place for that rolling stock. I have a tendency to let my model railway layouts become a bit cluttered as, after I make one of these videos, I tend to leave my demonstration train on the tracks, and when I come to want to test a different train, I'll pull the previous train off into a siding, or if there isn't a siding available, I'll park the previous train wherever I can get away with having it sit whilst I run my new train. Eventually, of course, this results in the layout becoming so cluttered that there isn't any more room to park things, so there's no way to run a new train without removing something. And part of the reason I've let this get as far as it has on my Dublo 3-rail layout is that I hadn't really provided for very much convenient storage for rolling stock close to that layout. So in this video, I'll be reviewing all of the rolling stock that had accumulated on the layout, and then I'll be implementing some additional storage and removing several trains from the table to provide clearer tracks for future running. So I'll start with a review of the rolling stock on my 3-rail tracks at the beginning of this process. All of the 3-rail rolling stock items discussed have been featured in detail in previous videos on this channel. I won't be able to provide cards linking to detailed videos on each of the rolling stock items since YouTube only allow 5 cards per video, so I'll try to provide a list of links to the detailed rolling stock videos in the video description below. And of course you can always access things just by browsing my channel. Here's a view of the whole 3-rail layout at the start of this process, taken from the end of the turntable extension shelf. Hopefully you can sort of see here how cluttered the tracks were, trains parked in every possible location, and no way to run anything new without removing something. Here's the view from a more natural angle in front of the table where I mainly stand to run things. I really wish I could make this layout bigger, but I don't see a way to do that without some fairly major household rearrangement. Here's a view just of the main tabletop. This is basically a single loop layout, but with 2 alternative back sections to the loop, a reversing crossover in the middle, a station, a goods depot, and several sidings, including a 4-road engine shed. The shelf extension at the right side of the table holds a turntable, with 5 tracks for loco parking on the far side of the turntable. Now, I don't have any problem with locos being parked here, that's what these tracks are for, and locos parked here don't interfere at all with the running on the layout, so I won't be removing these locos, though the occupants of these tracks may well change over time. Right now, these parking tracks are occupied from top to bottom as seen here by a 4F tender loco, a Duck 6 converted from an Airfix 2-rail model, a 264 tank with a kit-built body on a Dublo chassis, a Dublo N2, a Dublo Duchess of Atholl, renamed as the Duchess of Montrose, and a Princess Royal class converted from an old Triang 2-rail model. Now this train is very much an example of one shoehorned into a spot where it could be parked, but doesn't really belong. The loco is my latest converted Dublo Duchess as the Duchess of Sutherland, and behind it are the Exley restaurant car that I recently converted from EM gauge, seen here, with a Dublo LMS brake in the rear. Definitely a train that needs to be removed and put away. I parked it here because I could cut this track off from the power by changing the isolating point by which it branches off, but with this train parked here, nothing can get in or out from the turntable. Here's the front of the tabletop. On the main line is the train of Trix LMS coaches that I just worked on, behind a 264 tank with a Rem Crimson body on a Dublo chassis. In the siding at the front is the Crimson articulated 3-coach rake that I recently put together, and there are trains in both platforms of the station behind. Here's a closer view of the station and the occupying trains. The rear train has 2 Dublo LMS coaches, and the front train has 2 Dublo Crimson Suburban coaches, pressed by me into LMS service. And here are the locos of those 2 trains. At the rear is a Wren Royal Scot converted for 3-rail running, not by me in this case, I bought it this way. At the front is a Black 5 that I converted for 3-rail running from a fairly recent Hornby model, combining it with a tender from a 008F. Here's my little goods depot, with some freight wagons behind a diesel shunter, which was rather painfully put together from a combination of Dublo and Wren parts, as the original Dublo motor would barely run. Here's the front of my 4-road engine shed, a good place to park locos, but it does have the downside that the parked locos can barely be seen. The locos in the shed here are, from left to right, another Dublo Duchess, this one as the Duchess of Buccleuch, a repainted Dublo 264 tank in LMS black, a Trix Class 5 pretending to be a Black 5, and a Midland 4P compound converted from a fairly recent Hornby 2-rail model. Here you can see the front of the Duchess of Buccleuch in the shed and the back of the 264 tank. And here the back of the Trix Class 5 and the front of the Midland compound. Another view from the front of the shed, looking inside as best as I could manage with the camera. I wasn't planning to move these locos as part of the current process, although the Trix Class 5 might as well be removed to storage, as it isn't a great runner on the Dublo tracks, and nor is it really proper to my LMS prototype. Here's the back of the tabletop. The line at the back is the rear branch of the main loop. Nothing on that, but effectively it is occupied by the train of Trix coaches on the main line at the front. The next line down is a siding, in which I have a little mail train parked, a Dublo operating TPO coach behind my original Duchess of Atholl. The next line down is the inner branch of the main loop, and there are 2 trains on that, which will of course both move when power is applied since they're on the same track. The front train on that track consists of a few freight wagons behind my Ginty, converted from a Hornby 2-rail model for 3-rail running. Here's a closer view of that Ginty. This loco had a body in crimson livery when I first converted it for 3-rail, but I recently fitted this body in black livery as more true to LMS practice. Behind that train is the LMS heavy freight train that I recently put together. The loco is a 008F, refinished with LMS markings in place of the BR originals. And here's the mail train in the siding. That doesn't really need to move, as it's parked in a siding and not blocking anything, and also I have another Dublo mail coach on order, so I expect I'll be doing some mail train running again in the near future. I do like the Dublo TPO. I find this version with electrically operated mailbag pick-up and drop-off more appealing than the later lever-operated versions, although those are better finished for my prototype in LMS livery. And here's the loco, my original Duchess of Atholl from my first Dublo train set, although actually only the body and tender are original. I fitted a different chassis at some point to the loco. This is pretty much all I had in the way of storage near to the Dublo tabletop at the start of this process, a couple of drawers with some rolling stock on top also. I did also have this drawer lid nearby with some more rolling stock on it. At this point I went to Canadian Tire, a major auto and department store here in Canada, and bought 2 more of these storage drawers. I've been using these for rolling stock storage for quite a while and have stacks of them near all of my layouts. Here's a closer view of the paper that comes with these drawers. They're sold individually but can be joined into stacks. Here's the front of one of the drawers, labelled with dimensions and other info. I peel these labels off and clean the front of the drawers before using them. Here's the frame into which the drawer fits. It comes with a lid, but that lid needs to be removed if additional drawers are to be attached on top of this one to form a stack. The lid is removed by pressing in these little catches on the corners, generally with a screwdriver or something, and then pulling the lid up. The downside of using many of these drawers in stacks is that you end up with lots of spare lids hanging round. They can be somewhat useful as trays, and I made the control panel for my shuttling shelf layout out of one of these lids. Here are my two new drawers with their lids removed. With the lids removed, I attached one frame on top of the other. They snapped together with the same catches that the lid was attached with. Then the drawers themselves can be inserted into the frame. I was planning to put these drawers underneath the two that I already had near the Dublo table, so I didn't want a lid on them at all. Here you can see the two new drawers beside the two old ones. And here I have combined them into a single stack of 4 drawers by fitting the two old ones on top of the two new ones. And here are those new bottom drawers with some rolling stock in them. The drawers can hold quite a bit of rolling stock, but if you fill them, getting at the rolling stock at the back is a bit awkward. Also, with heavy items such as die-cast locos, you need to be careful that the weight of a pulled-out drawer doesn't tilt the whole stack. After my tidying up, I now have access to the locos parked behind the turntable. And both branches of the main loop are free for the operation of trains. I did put the heavy freight train into the front siding for now. And I left the mail train in its siding. I pulled the trains out of the station mainly because I wanted to inspect their coaches, as my next project will be to fix any broken glazing on my Dublo coaches, having just fixed the glazing on the Trix LMS coaches. Here's the train with 2 Dublo non-corridor coaches behind the converted Hornby Black 5. Here's the other train with the 2 Dublo LMS coaches behind the Wren Royal Scot. These are the latest Dublo Crimson non-corridor coaches with glazed windows, plastic wheels and plastic couplings. The glazing on these appears okay, not requiring repair. And here are the 2 Dublo LMS coaches behind the Royal Scot. Though older, the glazing on these appears okay, though I do have several of these coaches with glazing that's broken at the ends. I think that I will just be putting these trains back into the station for now. So that's it for now. The Dublo layout is ready for some more running. Next project, as I say, will likely be fixing glazing on Dublo coaches, unless something interesting turns up before I get to that.